Born to be great. A squire of the Seven Kingdoms. 298a.c. Winterfell. Jon Snow. Bran's arrow missed the target for the 100th time. Jon was teaching him to use a bow properly. He wasn't as good as Theon Greyjoy, but no one was better than the heir of the Iron Islands. Robb was there giving support for his brother with Rickon. The youngest of the Starks was sitting on a saddle. Both were laughing with the constant failures of their brother. But Jon remained calm. After all, he suffered a lot practicing how to shoot an arrow properly. Another arrow, another miss. Now the three boys laughed. And which of you was a marksman at 8 years old? Lord Stark asked them, with a fatherly smile covered his face and became bigger when a random arrow hit the center of the target. I must say, Lord Stark, that we do have a young marksman among us. It's such a shame that Septa Mordane doesn't let her practice with the boys. Sir Arthur said. They all looked in the direction the arrow came from. Jon was the first who saw Arya make a little reverence before running away with Bran chasing her. You little demon, he thought. Arya had a weakness for Jon. They were cousins, but she saw him like a brother. All the Stark children saw him and treated like a brother. But Arya asked him to train her with the bow and the sword. She wasn't a lady just like their Aunt Lyanna. By the old gods and the new, Arya, go back to your stitching lessons. We don't need the she-wolf of Winterfell reborn, Bran yelled with an angry tone. Jon saw how Lord Stark's face hardened with those words. He never talked about his sister, at least not in front of his children. Jon, come here please, I have a task for you. Lady Stark called him. She was accompanied by his mother. He ran to meet them in the second level of the castle. Lady Stark made him enter to his chambers. She followed him with his mother. What can I do for you, my lady? He said, making a little bow. No need of courtesies, my boy. We need to ask you about something you were doing last night. His mother's face switched from one with a sweet smile to one filled with fury. Last night. Jon felt how a lump formed inside his throat. We should have paid more for that century's silence. Well, we went out of the castle to drink a new kind of beer. The old man in the tavern said that it came from Essos, so we wanted to taste it. He gave both ladies an innocent smile. Oh, I see, and this new exotic beer included girls. His mother spat those words like only a mother could do. Fucking Theon, I told him it was a bad idea. Jon cursed in his head. At the same time, Robb entered to the room, with a big smile that faded as quickly as he entered and saw the ladies interrogating Jon. Mother, Aunt Willa, what are you doing here? Robb asked with a concerned tone. Jon saw a little drop of sweat running down his temple. Oh Robb, I'm glad that you're here. Jon was telling us about this new and exotic Essos beer you tasted last night. Lady Stark told him with a fake smile on her face. Oh, the beer, yeah. We went out last night to buy some of that beer. You know, we get tired sometimes of the northern beer. Robb said hesitantly. The two ladies shared a quick glance accompanied by a maleficent smile. Then how do you explain that we saw Ross and two more girls leaving your chambers this morning? They said in unison. Lady Stark, Mother? I can explain everything. Jon tried to save the situation. He was the best convincing people. Don't need for that, Jon. Maybe both of you want to explain this to Lord Stark and your uncle, his mother said. Then each woman dragged her respective son, from one ear, outside the room to meet Lord Stark. He was supervising Bran's training in the courtyard, who was sparring with Sir Arthur using wooden swords. The skilled knight was teaching him how to stand properly with the sword. Lord Stark turned around to see them approaching. The mere image of both being carried by their mothers made him smirk. "Cat, what are you doing with the boys?" he said with a knowing tone. "I think that they can answer your question, my lord," Lady Willa replied. In that moment Jon took a deep breath. He was ready to talk when Robb cut him off instantly. "Father, we went to a brothel last night." Lord Stark's face changed immediately after hearing those words. "My ladies, would you let me talk with my son and nephew, more privately?" Lord Stark asked both ladies with a subtle bow of his head. Both women made a quiet nod as they turned around and left them alone. "Not again, boys," Lord Stark said, taking his hands to his eyes. He took a deep breath and let out a deep sigh. His fingers touched his nose's bridge. "How many times I told you what could happen if you get one of those girls pregnant?" Jon's heart felt those words. He was a bastard. Everybody treated him well, but at the end of the day he was a bastard anyway. His sons would be bastards. That's why he never felt interest for the girls in the brothels. He wanted to be a knight. A wandering knight like Sir Duncan the Tall from the Tales of Duncan Egg. He had the proper age to be the squire of any knight, but in the north there were no knights. The first men never liked the Andals traditions, and his uncle was the master at arms of Winterfell. His only hope was travelling south, at least until he reached the Riverlands. "Don't let this happen again. I will talk with Theon about this. Don't let him fool you boys." Lord Stark's words brought him back from his thoughts. Suddenly Jory Castle came to deliver a scroll for Lord Stark. "My lord, a messenger has arrived. They have captured a deserter of the Night's Watch," he said, making a bow. Lord Stark received the scroll and told them, "Saddle the horses and tell Theon to bring me ice." Both boys nodded and went to do their task. "Jon, tell Bran that he will come too," he told him before leaving. A moment later they came out of the stables, each one with 3 horses. They were pulling them by their reins. Behind them was Bran with a pony. He couldn't ride a horse yet. "Do you really want to take Bran with you? He's just a boy, Ned." Lady Catelyn told her husband. "He will not be a boy forever, Cat, and winter is coming." Lord Stark replied to his wife. She sighed and approached to Jon and Robb. "Boys, take care of Bran, please," she told them with a worry face. "He will be by my side all the time, Lady Stark." Jon replied to her petition immediately. After that, the 7 riders left the castle. They rode through the Wolfswood a few hours. It was nice summer day. The summer snows painted all the landscape of a blinding white. The birds were singing and they saw a couple of deers running in the forest. Then they arrived where the execution would take place. A party of 6 soldiers was waiting for them. They settled the deserter on the ironwood stump after Lord Stark gave the order. Jon didn't pay attention to the man's last words. He only heard something about the with walkers. But as his uncle Ned said once, a madman sees what he sees. Maybe it was the cold, but the blood ran slowly out of the body once Lord Stark severed the head with ice, the ancestral long sword of House Stark. It was as taller as Robb and was made of Valyrian steel. Valyrian steel was lighter and remained sharp for more time than the castle steel. Jon led the march back to Winterfell with Robb, but suddenly they stopped when they found a dead deer in the way. It was already rotting. When the men climbed down their horses to investigate, Jon heard a couple of whines coming from the nearby stream. He walked to the origin of those whines with Robb just to find a giant dead wolf and 5 pups. "It's a dire wolf," Robb yelled to his father. "What in 7 hells is a dire wolf doing south of the wall?" Jon asked. "It doesn't matter, boys. Winter's coming, and those pups will not make it through," Lord Stark said. "The best we can do is bring them a quick death." "Excuse me, Uncle Ned, but the dire wolf is your family sigil. There are 5 pups, 3 male and 2 females, 1 for each of your children," Jon said, and noticed how Bran and Robb opened their eyes with excitement. "What about you, Jon?" his uncle asked. "I'm not a Stark, Uncle." His uncle looked at him with a mix of emotions. He could notice a hint of pride and nostalgia. "Then you'll feed them yourselves. You'll teach them yourselves, and if they die, you'll bury them yourselves. These are not common dogs. A dire wolf can easily rip off a man's arm," Lord Stark said with a serious tone. "We will not disappoint you, Father," Robb said proudly. They were leaving when Jon heard noise between some bushes near to the mother corpse. He climbed down his horse and walked in the snow. Look. He must have crawled away from the others, he said at the same time he took the pup. It was white, and had red eyes unlike the others that had grey hair.